Okay.
That was beautiful. Thank you so much for
Um,
sharing that with us. I cannot wait to read the rest of it.
okay. Thank you. Yeah.
Steven says,
Thank you.
excellent. Ufanand says, wow, dark. Looking forward to Crowbait already. Well, in the meantime, you can enjoy Crow Tower, another wonderful book.
Oh, thank you. Um, it's always good to get encouragement to do work. Um, and I think that um, I think this is Crowbait is another good book, and but it's also what's the word I'm looking? It's not experimental. It's different. It's not conventional.
It's
And to get people feeding back and saying that they find that um, enjoyable and worthwhile is a motivational boost that perhaps I needed as well. So thank you, and thank you for indulging me in reading a work in
Well,
progress rather than
thank you very much for sharing it with us, and the audience definitely seemed to enjoy it. And
great.
yeah, you've gotten some fantastic reviews on Crowman, especially, and I'm sure we'll only have even more coming up for Crow Tower. More than a few five-star ratings.
Um, yeah, well, I hope so. What was it they say? Never read the reviews. But I'm afraid that I do. Um, and every review is wonderful. You can get caught up with 4 stars and 5 stars and 3 stars and all the rest of it. But in fact, just knowing that someone has read your book, has thought about it, and has formed an opinion about it means that you have made a connection. And, if I'm honest, a 5 star writer might be, in my opinion, someone like Harold Melville or Wilkie Collins or Robert Louis Stevenson or Michael Moorcock or um, Gene Wolfe or Anne McCafferty or all of these really great writers. And if someone feels that I'm worthy of being mentioned in the same breath, and I've, probably they don't think that, but if someone's prepared to give me a 5 star review, which is what you would give to one of those authors, then I'm delighted. But I can also see that I am not in their league. But that doesn't mean to say that I'm not worth reading or enjoying or looking at. And I'm delighted to have someone read, think about my work, give an honest opinion, and to give me feedback. Um, how vain we are! We're such vain creatures, authors. We're like one of your cats, Catherine. We just love to get petted and to be indulged and but that is our nature and we must be true to our natures.
And you know what? I think,
This is why you read the ears.
yes. And I think there's definitely a lot more room in writing and kind of in society in general for people to be proud of their creations, be proud of what they do. And I think it's wonderful that you do take pride and that you feel good about your writing. And yeah, I'm absolutely looking forward to Crowbait. I very much enjoyed Crow Tower and, of course, Crowman. And yeah, just an absolute delight. Chat, if there's anything else you'd like to bring up to David, or if there's anything you'd like to talk about? Anything else? Yeah, you, David?
Sorry,
Yeah,
me.
I don't know. Is there anything else you'd like to mention?
I, I think maybe I have a question for the audience, and it's about Crowman, and it's an interesting piece of feedback that I had that um, I, incorrectly, I have to say, I was told that I didn't pass the test of two women having a conversation within Crowman, and there, I'm not going to point out where that does about someone other than a man. I'm not going to point out in the book where that happens, but it does happen, and that's a very low bar for not being sexist. But in spite of being told that I hadn't, I think I did. Uh, However, I do recognize that women's voices are there, but are perhaps in this world, women are not given the prominence that we've come to expect in a more modern and equal world. I don't feel bad about that because I think that it's if this is hell, why would we be treating women nicely? uh, and I hope the book has managed to not condone sort of sexist stereotyping and all that kind of thing, and but does show it. I mean, if you look at the Lasora and Lana and even Escanza, they have really quite difficult lives. And certainly Alaba too does have a very difficult life. Um, However, I'm hoping the book doesn't come across as misogynistic or sexist, even though there's misogyny and sexism in it. And I think that's a question I would like to know from my audience whether I've managed to achieve that. And if I've not managed to achieve it, in what way do you think I could in future make my writing better at giving uh, women's voices equal prominence or equal validity in my writing? Is that
I think that made sense. And I think, if I may answer the question a little bit, um, it is definitely the world that you've set up is a little like the writing itself is not sexist, I would say. The world, maybe. Um,
or not maybe? I
yes,
think quite
yes.
definitely.
But at least from my point of view, uh, the variety of the female characters, there may not be too many of them, but they're very different from each other. And the scene you mentioned in Crowman, which two female characters talk to each other about something other than a man, uh, that really highlighted the difference between those characters. And I think just having that level of depth to the female
Mhm.
characters helps that.
Yeah, we have one woman actually murders another one.
Yes, yes.
No, I mean it's not. They're not just having dialogue; they're actually interacting and changing the plot, so to speak. Um, but I do worry, and I take on board that this is a misogynistic world, and I'm not shying away from that, but I don't want to be the book to be misogynistic. And if there's any hints or ideas about how to make sure that I don't fall into that trap, then I would be delighted to hear them.
Well, chat, feel free to chime in on the topic. Uh, I feel that more female characters are always welcome, especially there haven't been any female point of view characters yet. And I think one could add a very interesting layer to Crowbait. Lady Jeanette Thompson says maybe collaboration with a woman author would balance the scales.
Oh, is that an author? Is that an author there? That's a great idea, and there are authors that I've collaborated on. Actually, they've all pretty much been women, and I would love to have someone collaborate with me on Crowbait to take it forward. And I think your idea of a female point of view is actually brilliant. I think there are obvious characters there that we can use, and that's actually going to make things easier for me as well, because Crowbait only has so far one point of view. It's the point of view of the this god that's trying to persuade people to escape from hell, and it's written almost in second person, where he's describing people's actions and deeds, just as you saw from the reading. So switching into a first person point of view of a female character is going to allow me to write in an easier format, and it's going to allow me to bring in a more earthed point of view as well, and also hopefully to bring in more equality into my writing. These are. I'm glad I asked that question. So, and can I also say, in the steampunk, in the second book, that book is written entirely from a female protagonist's point of view. So that that's good to think about that, and about how I pull that into Crowbait. That's brilliant. That's fantastic.
Glad to help. And Ufanand brought up a very good point in the chat. In Crowman, there's even a kind of heroine in my favorite chapter, actually, the one with the girl and her brother working in the fields when the sun is out.
Yes, there is. She is the main protagonist in that story, but she doesn't have a conversation with another female.
True.
in that particular part. There are other areas where there are conversations. Juana has a conversation with Gordito's wife, and both Escanza and Hosta and Alaba, the three of them have a conversation together about sausages and things like what they're having for dinner. And there's various other places where they have these conversations.
Yes, the scene that...
But you definitely notice that very low bar of sexism. But I would like to ensure that my writing does include more. And I think having... I'm definitely interested in anyone that would like to collaborate, and I'm definitely going to bring in a female point of view.
Great, I look forward to it. Actually, the scene that immediately popped to my mind when you mentioned I think it's the Bechdel test, was the scene in Crowman, hopefully without giving anything away. There's nothing, there are no dialogue tags. There's just straight dialogue in that chapter, but it's clear who's talking, and Alaba and Escanza are both talking about other things in that scene.
Yeah, maybe trivial things on occasion, but certainly other things. And in fact, that conversation is the bulk of that chapter. And I think Um, I think I ought to just say why there are no dialogue tags in that chapter, and that is because the narrator Mokito is blind at that point, so he cannot see who is speaking. So it might be obvious to you and I from the dialogue, but it wasn't necessarily obvious to Makito who was speaking. So, as such, he doesn't put these dialogue tags in because he doesn't really know exactly who is
Mm-hmm.
speaking. So, if it is a bit confusing, and I understand that for some people it isn't, and for some people it is, if it is a bit confusing, that's because the narrator is a bit confused.
It's meant to be.
Yeah.
So, it is. I've got 6:30 on my clock here. If there's anything else that you'd like to bring up, chat or David, anything else you'd like to talk about, then by all means, please do so. Um, Otherwise, I think it's we can start wrapping up.
Well, I think I'd really just like to thank everybody that's come, and I'm sure, like you, this is my first launch party, and I'm delighted to have had so much feedback and support, and I'd like to thank you also, Kathleen, for being a wonderful and gracious host, and I'd like to uh, plead with whoever is interested in being a collaborator, male or female, to feel free to speak to me. I'd be delighted to show you where I've got to in CROWTOWER or in any of the other works that I'm working on, and to think about how we can bring them forward. And please, please, thank you. Thank you for all your help.
And you
It's
have,
been wonderful.
sorry, you have a blog and website.
I do have a blog and website. The blog, uh, it's perhaps not been as active as it should be over the last year. Primarily, I use it to publish um, or to publicize short stories when I have them accepted into other publications. I've not been as active with short stories either because my focus has mostly been on CROWTOWER and CROWBAIT and the two other larger pieces of work that I've completed, and the so that's taken me away from that. But I've really the other thing I've used it quite a lot for is I do have a web series on that called Ruth and John. I don't know if you're aware of that, Kathleen.
I think
Uh,
so, yes.
and this is very loosely based on my rather racy grandparents, who seem to have had quite a life. Um, uh, my grandfather, uh, perhaps not as racy as what I've put in the book, and by racy I mean exciting, not bad. And indeed, I've been fortunate enough with that to have collaborators, and I love to have collaborators working with me on that because it's a very fun. Ruth is quite a character, and John is a different kind of character. But so far, it's involved spies, um, secret U-boat, submarine, hovercrafts, demon dogs, and uh, the main protagonist of the book is a secret society called Hiss, which, if I remember correctly, is the I can't remember correctly. I can remember what the S's stand for, but I can't remember what the H. It's the secret society, the secret satanic society of Sudan, or of this. So it's that's quite a. My grandfather apparently was in Sudan, and according to this story, at least, he there he got involved with this really quite nasty bunch of people. He was old enough to actually have been at the relief of Kitchener, which just goes to show how history is not as far away as you actually think.
Mm-hmm. Fascinating. So,
So, so anybody wants to get involved in that, I would be delighted.
and what are the URLs for those?
So it's only one site, so it's Ray DVD R raydvdr.wordpress.com.
All right, I'm just going to put that in the chat for anyone who'd like to check that out. Please do. And
And there's loads of stuff on there. There's because that's been running for quite some time, and there's quite a lot of because most of what the short stories I've published have been on websites. So once they expire, they go on there, and yeah, there's a lot there. Maybe I need to organise it slightly better, but I think if you rummage around, you'll find plenty of interest there for you.
great. Well, thank you very much for giving us a wonderful introduction to CROWTOWER and even the hint at crowbait. Thank you for everyone who listened in and joined in the chat. It's been a great evening. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your weekend.